one of the reasons we're going to start with the 1950, I mean, Rodgers and Hammerstein had truly reinvented the musical, and there were many musicals in the era, but now others were really catching up. And the script, the book, and music are fully integrated. And when the characters sang, they sang music that enhanced who they were. When you turned on the radio, the top 40 hits were still from the Broadway musical. There was a true invention of storytelling, and choreography or integrated dance was now the way of time here in the musical. So who were some of the people that were recording? Well, we have the old guard here in the upper right. That's Irving Berlin, of course. To the left of him is Cole Porter. And we have Julie Stein, who's now done 3 musicals on Broadway, even though he was primarily at this point in time a Hollywood composer. Of course, we have the 2 leaders in the reinvention of the Broadway musical, Rodgers and Hammerstein on the left, Harold Rome on the right, who had written some very successful musicals in the 1940s, Bloomer Girl being one of them, now long since forgotten. And the bottom right is Kurt Weill, who dies early into the decade, and his great contribution to musicals, he wrote One Touch of Venus, Lady in the Dark, and several others that were really very bold, dies as well. But now we have the emerging guys. The couple at the bottom, that's of course Stephen Sondheim and Leonard Bernstein. It's the opening night of West Side Story. Stephen Sondheim is 26 years old in that picture. Above them is Lerner and Loewe, but on the left is Frank Loesser. And Frank Loesser had a wicked sense of humor. And in fact, he was married twice. And of his first wife, he said she was the evil of 2 lessers. And of his second wife, she said she was the lesser of 2 evils. We also have Meredith Willson on the bottom right, who wrote The Music Man. Adler and Ross tragically only got to write 2 musicals together because Jerry Adler died very suddenly at the age of 27. And Bach and Harnick at the upper right, who will write some of the greatest musicals, of course, in the 60s. They write Fiddler on the Roof. But the choreographers were the people that start to really change the Broadway musical, because they suddenly start to become the directors as well. On the bottom left, we have Michael Kidd, who directed Guys and Dolls. On the bottom right, we have Gower Champion, who had directed 1 musical in the late 1940s. But he and his wife, Marge, they sort of think they're going to become the next Fred and Ginger. They're in a lot of Hollywood movies together, but Gower Champion becomes the go-to choreographer, director as well. On the upper right is a 26-year-old Bob Fosse, and on the upper left is Agnes DeMille. We have a lot of emerging talent in this era. We have Julie Newmar in the upper left. In the bottom left, we have Dick Van Dyke and Chita Rivera. The bottom right is Gwen Verdon. Phil Silvers in the upper right, who really wasn't a big Broadway star at the time, but he had done some musicals. And he, after doing a musical in the early 1950s called Top Banana, he'd been in some others as well. He goes on to get real fame as Sergeant Bilko on television. The center top picture is Florence Henderson, and the bottom center picture is Julie Andrews, 24 years old, her audition photo headshot for My Fair Lady. Then we get to the next group. Of course, we have on the upper left Carol Burnett. The bottom left is Carol Channing, Robert Preston and Barbara Cook on the top right, Don Knotts and Andy Griffith, and of course, the king, Yul Brynner, in the center. But there was carryover talent as well. We had Celeste Holm, and then in the upper right, you have Gertrude Lawrence, Ethel Merman, and Rosalind Russell on the bottom right. And here they are with a little more close-up, Judy Holliday and Alfred Drake in the upper right. But storylines had changed. I mean, now you could have racism as a storyline because of South Pacific, and you certainly had The King and I and West Side Story. Political satire, the great non-love love stories with The King and I and My Fair Lady, labor relations, Americana. Everything was American at this point in time. Except for one musical, which we'll talk about, My Fair Lady, is the only musical that did not take place in an American, well, of course, The King and I, but Damn Yankees, there was The Most Happy Fellow, the operatic tones with West Side Story, and then famous people start to evolve as well. But these are the things that gave us the greatest gift of the Broadway musical, these Broadway albums that we took home after the musical. Rex Harrison and Julie Andrews' My Fair Lady was the largest selling Broadway album of all time. The recording rights were $350,000, which paid for the entire production of My Fair Lady. And My Fair Lady continued to be the largest selling album of all time until it was surpassed about 15 years later by Fiddler on the Roof. But the impact of television was pretty powerful. They needed performers who could perform live. And because of that, they had to count on Broadway performers who were used to doing that. Movie people were off limits to television because of their Hollywood contracts. But the Broadway people were readily available. And in 1953, the Ford Motor Company paired Mary Martin and Ethel Merman, truly the first time the two of them had ever performed together, both quite skittish of each other for a variety of reasons. Mary Martin toured the country in Annie Get Your Gun when Ethel was performing it on Broadway, and Mary got reviews that Ethel never got. You know, it's great to see a tomboy really playing. And I see a question, so let me stop and ask and see what it is. And Ethel really was quite nervous about her. So, you know, it's one of those things where once they met, they found out how compatible they really were. Well, so talking about some of the most memorable musicals of the 1950s, there's Call Me Madam, Irving Berlin's maybe last big Broadway success, with Ethel Merman cast as a socialite who's converted into an ambassador based upon Pearl Mesta, the ambassador who was named for Luxembourg. And everybody thought it was absolutely ridiculous that a woman socialite would know anything about politics and how to behave as an ambassador. And the irony is this became the fodder of a musical for Ethel Merman. And here we go.
Look, kid, these things happen to all of us. Nothing could be as bad as... Ken, what's happened to you?
I hear singing, and there's no one there. I smell blossoms, and the trees are bare. All day long I seem to walk on air. I wonder why. I wonder why. I keep tossing in my sleep at night, and what's more, I've lost my appetite. Stars that used to twinkle in the skies are twinkling in my eyes. I wonder why.
You don't need analyzing. It is not so surprising that you feel very strange but nice. Your heart goes pitter-patter. I know just what's the matter, because I've been there once or twice. Put your head on my shoulder. You need someone who's older, or rub down with a velvet glove. There is nothing you can take to relieve that pleasant ache. You're not sick, you're just in love. You don't need analyzing. It is not so surprising that you feel very strange but nice. Your heart goes pitter-patter. I know just what's the matter, because I've been there once or twice. Put your head on my shoulder. You need someone who's older, or rub down with a velvet glove. There is nothing you can take to relieve that pleasant ache. You're not sick, you're just in love. Come on now, snap out of it.
I hear singing.
But you just said that.
I know, but
I hear singing and there's no
It is
one
not so
there.
surprising that
I
you
smell
feel
the
very
blossoms
strange,
and the
but
trees are
nice.
there.
Your heart
All day
goes
long
pitter-patter.
seem to
I know
walk
just
on air.
what's the
I wonder
matter,
why.
because I've been there
I
once or
wonder why.
twice. Put your
I keep
head on my
tossing in
shoulder.
my
You
sleep
need
at
someone
night.
who's older. A
And
rub
once
down
more
where the
I
bells
lost
hang
my
loud. There's
Stars that
nothing you
used
can
to
take
twinkle
to
in the
relieve that
skies
pleasant
are
ache.
twinkling
You're not
in
sick,
my
you're
eyes.
just
I
in
wonder
love.
Oh, it's wonderful Irving Berlin music. Well, Guys and Dolls is probably one of the greatest musicals ever written. Frank Loesser, who wrote the original score, did something that most composers and lyricists never do. He wrote the entire score before there was even a script. He knew what he wanted these characters to sound like. They also knew, with George S. Kaufman directing, that they wanted Robert Alda for Sky Masterson, that they wanted Vivian Blaine, a nightclub performer, to play Miss Adelaide, and that they wanted Sam Levine, a Borscht Belt performer, to play Nathan Detroit. Well, what was kind of interesting about that is it got them into trouble, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Guys and Dolls did things that most musicals had never done. I mean, it had two equal sets of lead characters. It talked in a way, an imaginary way the streets might have sounded in New York, although probably never really did. And it made a star out of Stubby Kaye when it was realized that Sam Levine couldn't sing the song Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat, and they had to figure out a way to use it. And they gave it to another character, not Nathan Detroit, who could sing and get it going.
Guys and Dolls is a fable about the people who inhabit a bygone Broadway. Con men and schemers, evangelists and showgirls, characters with names like Nicely Nicely Johnson and Sky Masterson. I had the opportunity to play Sky in the City Center revival in 1965, I think, with Alan King as Nathan Detroit and Jake LaMotta as Big Julie. Here, the original Vivian Blaine as Miss Adelaide, the perpetually yearning for marriage girlfriend of gambler Nathan Detroit. Unfortunately for Adelaide, Nathan's grand passion is running a floating crap game. In this famously plaintive number with comically clever lyrics, her failure to make an honest man of Nathan is starting to literally make her sick.
It says here, the average unmarried female, basically insecure, due to some long frustration, may react with psychosomatic symptoms, difficult to endure, affecting the upper respiratory tract. In other words, just from waiting around for that plain little band of gold, a person develop a cold. You can spray it wherever you think you're the streptococcus lurk. You can give her a shot for whatever she's got, but it just won't work. If she's tired of getting that fish eye from the hotel clerk, a person can develop a cold. In other words, just from wondering whether the wedding is on or off, a person can develop a cold. You can feed her all day with the vitamin A and the bromophil, but the medicine never gets anywhere near where the trouble is. If she's getting a kind of a name for herself and the name ain't his, a person can develop a cold. And furthermore, just from installing the wedding trip, a person can develop black grip. When they get on the train for Niagara, and she can hear church bells chime, the compartment is air conditioned, and the mood sublime. Then they get off at Saratoga for the 14th time. A person can develop black grip, la post-nasal drip, with the wheezes and the sneezes and the sinus that's real
things I want to comment on that is, these actresses at the time and actors, I mean, they played to the balcony. They were used to it. You could see what Vivian Blaine truly was doing there. Well, here's Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. And as I said, when they wrote the song originally, it was written for the character of Nathan Detroit, but he couldn't sing it, Sam Levine. So they looked around the scene. Who else had they got? They restructured the script a little bit, and it suddenly became for the character Nicely Johnson. This is the 1992 revival of Guys and Dolls, which was considered one of the quintessential revivals. And it was the first one in 40 years of major stature. It ran for 4 years on Broadway, as a matter of fact. And what's so interesting about this, you're going to see some people in the scene. One of the people is J.K. Simmons, who won an Academy Award for the movie Whiplash. He's wearing the bright orange suit. Nathan Lane, of course, you'll see in the scene. And the guy who's singing Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat is Walter Bobby, who is a musical director who actually is the guy who restaged Chicago 25 years ago, and it's been running ever since. So everybody in this production ended up the leads having quite a career.
I would like to welcome you, gentlemen, to the Save a Soul mission.
Hey, come on!
The meeting will be conducted by the head of our organization, General Cartwright.
Oh. We will now hear testimony from Brother Nicely Johnson. Brother Nicely Johnson!
Well, it happened to be kind of funny, like a dream. That's it, a dream.
Tell us in your own words.
I dreamed last night I got on the boat to heaven, and by some chance I had brought my dice along. And there I stood, and I hollered, someone fade me. But the passengers, they knew right from wrong. For the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat.
People all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat.
And the devil will drag you under by the sharp lapel of your checkered coat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. I sailed away on that little boat to heaven, and by some chance found a bottle in my fist. And there I stood, nicely passing out the whiskey, but the passengers were bound to resist. For the people all said, beware, you're all right. People all said, beware, you'll scuttle the ship, and the devil will drag you under by the fancy tie on you and get broke. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. And as I laughed at those passengers to heaven, a great big wave came and washed me overboard. And as I sank and I hollered, someone save me. That's the moment I woke up. Thank the Lord. And I said to myself, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Said to myself, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under, with a soul so heavy it never floats. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. You're rocking the boat. Sit down, 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 you're rocking the boat. Sit down.
One of the greatest musicals ever. Of course, The King and I came about not because anybody really thought it was going to be a success, but sort of an interesting story. Gertrude Lawrence had decided after reading Anne and the King of Siam and seeing the movie that this would be a perfect musical vehicle for her. And she goes to Cole Porter, and Cole Porter basically says to Gertie, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm not interested in this at all. And she quickly makes an appointment with Rodgers and Hammerstein, who, quite frankly, really don't want to be involved with her. She's very difficult, although she's very stylish and exciting. She's a really tough, nasty character. And they know that getting involved with her is going to be one complication after another. They meet her literally just to be polite. And they explain to her that they write to a formula, that they always have two couples, a primary couple and a secondary couple, a matriarchal figure, that they write stories about racism and classism. And she's determined. And she says to them, ask your wives. And what literally happens is the wives agree. They say, she's got something there. And well, they then start in to do this. And Richard Rodgers really is trying to write music that doesn't sound odd, but at the same time gives a sense of the exotic. And they hire Jerome Robbins to be the choreographer. Jerome Robbins, of course, embroiled in a battle that Ed Sullivan has created. Ed Sullivan is an informant to the FBI about people who had communist leanings, and wants him to go testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee, and threatens him that if he doesn't, he'll out him in the affair he's having with Montgomery Clift, which would have ruined both of their careers at that point in time in 1951. In any event, they have no idea. Now they have Gertrude Lawrence. Who are they going to get to be the king? And they go to Rex Harrison because Rex Harrison had made the movie. And Rex Harrison's very clear that he would never lower himself to sing on a Broadway stage. Can you imagine? But Mary Martin, they really don't know what to do. They then go to Alfred Drake, who is more demanding than Gertrude Lawrence. And they finally are talking to Mary Martin. And she says, I was in a show, it was a terrible show called The Lute Song, with this very exotic actor, Yul Brynner. He's doing an awful lot in television right now, but maybe you should reach out to him. And they do. And the rest, of course, is history. Well, after the music, after The King and I opens, Gertrude Lawrence is having a difficult time. And the stage manager calls Richard Rodgers and says, look, you've got to get in here and see what Gertie is up to, because she's just, I think you're going to be surprised. And Richard Rodgers goes to see the Saturday matinee, and he goes backstage afterwards and says to her quite bluntly, Gertie, look, you're not doing yourselves any favors here. Maybe what you need to do is let us create a really lovely reason, giving you a lot of praise why you are leaving The King and I, because you're doing stuff that's just not going to work. And she was devastated by this because, after all, this was her idea. Well, she comes back on Monday night. She collapses on stage. They rush her to the hospital, and they find out that she has advanced stages of liver cancer, and she never, never comes back to The King and I. Well, she makes two requests. The first is she wants to be buried in that dress from the very sensual dancing scene where she and the king she teaches the king the polka, and they look into each other's eyes. When it's done right, it's one of the most combustible romantic scenes you would see from two people who know they can never really be together. The second thing that she asks is that you see where Gertrude Lawrence's name is on the placard, that Yul Brynner's name go to the top, because after all, he is the king. And that is what happened. And of course, Yul Brynner spent a career playing the king in The King and I. One of the great revivals was in 2015, and this is a couple of moments from that.
More moving than ever, and it was recently nominated for 9 Tony Awards.
The King and I follows the story of Anna, an English woman in the 1860s who has traveled to Siam to teach the many children of the king. Here's Tony nominee Kelly O'Hara as Anna, who is getting better acquainted with her new pupils.
It's a very ancient saying, but a true and honest thought that if you become a teacher, by your pupils you'll be taught. As a teacher I've been learning, you'll forgive me if I boast, and I've now become an expert on the subject I like most. Getting to know you. Getting to know you. Getting to know all about you. Getting to like you. Getting to hope you like me. Getting to know you. Putting it my way, but nicely. You are precisely
My cup of tea.
getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy. When I am with you, getting to know what to say. Haven't you noticed? Suddenly I'm bright and breezy because of all the beautiful and new things I'm learning about you day by day. Getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy. When I'm with you, getting to know what to say. Haven't you noticed? Suddenly I'm bright and breezy because of all the beautiful and new things I'm learning about you day by day.
And from the 1996 revival,
She told me she would be here,
She can never be with us ever again. She has quarreled with the king.
but she must be here. How can we meet if she is not with us?
Mrs. Anna will go back to England.
She cannot go. She is our only friend. Without her, I can never be near you.
We cannot be seen talking like this. Pretend you come to say goodbye. Pretend you wait for her.
If only we could stop pretending. We kiss in the shadow. We hide from the moon. Our meetings are few and over too soon. We speak in a whisper, afraid to be heard. When people are near, we speak not a word. Alone in our secret, together we sigh for one smiling day to be free, to kiss in the sunlight and say to the sky, behold and believe what you see. Behold how my love loves me. When can we meet? When?
It is not possible. We cannot meet alone ever. Not ever. We speak in a whisper, afraid to be heard. When people are near, we speak not a word.
What is it?
Someone was here. I had the feeling someone was watching us. Please go. Please. To kiss in the sunlight and say to the sky, behold and believe what you
Wonderful Town, of course, was a vehicle that reignited the career of Rosalind Russell, written by Leonard Bernstein, and the script coming out of with Compton and Green. This based upon an old Rosalind Russell movie, My Sister Eileen. Rosalind Russell's husband got wind of the fact that Leonard Bernstein and Compton Green wanted to write a musical based upon My Sister Eileen. He grabbed the rights, and suddenly Leonard Bernstein, if he wanted to do this, was going to be doing it with Rosalind Russell. And here is a clip. In 1958, it was done on television after Auntie Mame had become a big success. It had never been filmed, and this is one of the only, viewings you can get is this YouTube.
Hi, Admiral. I'm from the press. I just want to ask you a few questions.
That means you don't understand.
Thanks, I know that much Portuguese myself. Well, now, boys. You fellas speak English?
See, English.
Oh, good. Well, now, what do you think of America?
American dance, conga.
No, conga's the Brazilian dance.
No, cubano. No, conga, American dance. You show conga?
If I show you, will you give me the interview?
See.
Okay. It's easy. All I gotta do is go, 1, 2, 3, kick like that. 1, 2, 3, kick.
Ah,
see. Putting out like that. See. That's good, fellas. That's what you got.
What do you think of the USA, NRA, TVA? What do you think of our Mother's Day? What do you think of our... What do you think of our native scores? Charles D. Dawes, Morton Laws. What's your opinion of Santa Claus? What do you think of our... Yeah, fellas. Now, don't make so much noise. I gotta talk to you. Wait a fellas. Good neighbors, remember our policy. Good neighbors, I'll help you if you'll just help me. I gotta miss my job, see? Wait a minute. That's swell. Now, wait a minute, fellas. Look, I'm not talking. Oh, what's your opinion of Harold Teen, Mitzi Green, Dizzy Dean? Who do you love on the silver screen? What do you think of us? Oh, what do you think of our rhythm bands, monkey glands, hot dog stands? What do you think of Stokowski's hands? What do you think of us? Good neighbors, remember our policy. Good neighbors, I'll help you if you'll just help me. I'll lose my job. What do you think of women's clothes, major bows, Steinbeck's bros? What do you waltz, family vaults, Epsom salts. How would you guys like to learn to waltz? Now you wanna conga!
Well, the Pajama Game was sort of a risk. Hal Prince, working in the office of George Abbott, sees a script come in based upon a novel called The 7.5 Cent Solution. And he goes to Rosalind Russell's husband, who he met while Hal Prince himself was the stage manager on Wonderful Town, and presents it to him. And what Rosalind Russell's husband says is, look, you raise half of it and I'll meet you the other half. So Hal Prince goes to all of his parents' friends on the North Shore of Long Island, raises $125,000. The other $125,000 comes from Roz Russell's husband, and the Pajama Game is going to get launched. But they get really nervous because it's about labor relations. And they're worried that, labor relations has not been the theme of a Broadway musical at all, ever, with success. So they decide they're going to open it after the season ends in May of 1954, which was an odd time to open a musical. Today it's done all the time, but then it wasn't, because people fled the city in the summer. So what people did, they thought, if it's a flop, no one will remember it when they come back in the fall. And if it's a hit, they'll be talking about it all summer, will be a big success. Well, there were two hit songs that helped propel Pajama Game, and this is, of course, one of them.
All right, Frank. Hey there, you with the stars in your eyes. Love never made a fool of you. You used to be too wise.
Hey there, you on that high-flying cloud. Though she won't throw a crumb to you, you think someday she'll come to you.
Better forget him with his nose in the air. He has you dancing on a string. Break it and he won't care. Won't you take this advice I hand you like a brother? Or are you not seeing things too clear?
Are you too much in love to hear?
Is it all going in one ear and out the other? Hey there,
You talking to me?
you with the stars in your eyes.
Me?
Love never made a fool of you.
Not until now.
You used to be too wise.
Yeah, I was once.
Won't you
Take this advice I hand you like a brother.
Or are you not seeing things too clear?
Are you too much in love to hear? Is it all going in one ear and out the
Well, John Raitt introduced the song in the musical, and Rosemary Clooney made it famous in that recording. Hence, that's why they were together in the duet. Well, after the success of Pajama Game, Damn Yankees came next, and it launches the career stratospheric of Gwen Verdon. The story about the man who was willing to sell his soul so the Washington Senators could win the pennant. And it had never been a topic for a musical before. And this is the great number that everybody remembers from Damn Yankees.
Well, we have to keep training and strict rules and all that.
You can tell me all the rules.
You're making things very complicated.
Then be good boy.
I'm trying to.
And do like Lola tells you to do. Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. And little man, little Lola wants you. Make up your mind to have no regrets. Recline yourself, resign yourself, you're through. I always get what I aim for, and your heart and soul is what I came for. Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. No use to fight, don't you know you can't win? You're no exception to the rule. I'm irresistible, you fool. Give in. Give in. Give in. Hello, Joe. It's me. It's so far. Hold on, that's you. Your heart and soul is what I came for. Lola wants, Lola gets. You'll never win. I'm irresistible, you fool. Give in. Give in. Hello, Joe.
Well, My Fair Lady came next. The idea of turning Pygmalion into a musical was very, very much on a lot of producers' minds. Rodgers and Hammerstein looked at it. They just couldn't figure it out, because they frankly wrote, again, musicals that had a primary couple, a secondary couple, and although the plot is about women's rights and taking charge of oneself in the suffragette era and classism, they just weren't sure how this British story would play out in Peoria, so to speak. They gave it up, but Lerner and Loewe, who get wind that MGM is thinking of turning it into a musical, start to look at it themselves, and they go to the attorney at the Shaw Estate and ask if he could delay starting on it until they have 6 weeks to play with it. They come up with what's the perfect they think the perfect way to handle this, they watched the Leslie Howard, Wendy Hiller movie from 1937, and they come up with what they think is the perfect way to do it by looking at things that are mentioned on stage, but never really seen. Well, Rex Harrison was not the first choice. The first choice was really Noel Coward. He turned it down. They then went to Peter Sellers. He turned it down. And they continued down a list of a great many people until finally somebody said, how about Rex Harrison? Well, Rex Harrison only did it because he said, I'll get to be uttering the words of Shaw. And Rex Harrison was very difficult to work with. He was quite nervous about singing on stage. They offered the part of Eliza Doolittle to Mary Martin. She turned it down because she had never heard such horribly ugly music before. Well, thank goodness for Mary Martin turning it down, because it gave us Julie Andrews. This is a recreation of two first rehearsals when the show was out of town.
Andrews, and I remember this day. In preparation for the role of Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, I, an English girl, had to study with Alfred Dixon, a New Yorker, to learn a Cockney accent.
I-E-I-L-U.
All right.
Yes. Oh, we are proud. Did you tell him I come in a taxi?
Julie, you're not giving it to me broad enough yet.
Oh.
All right, try it again.
Oh, we are proud. Did you tell him I come in a taxi? That's it now.
No, you're not giving me enough of the pitch arc. You see, melody is the soul of a dialect accent. You're not giving me enough of the Cockney melody. Listen.
Oh, we are proud. Did you tell him I come in a taxi?
No, that's better. That's better. Now, let's take the line where Higgins gives her the chocolate.
Yes. I wouldn't have ate it, only I'm too ladylike to take it out of your mouth.
That's pretty good. Now let's try it with the chocolate.
I wouldn't have ate it, only I'm too ladylike to take it out of your mouth.
I can't understand you now. You're mumbling.
Now.
Now, let's try it again.
Ow.
Now, what's the matter now?
Honestly, this accent, you know, one of these days I'm going to wake up and not be able to speak any differently. Wouldn't that be funny? Can you imagine me saying to my mother, hello, Ducks, how's my dear old mum today? She wouldn't know who it was.
Yes, she would. As you said, how, with an H.
Oh, Alfred.
I said no H's. Ow, 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 ow. No H's. However, let's not be too discouraged. Now, let's take Just You White, Henry Higgins, Just You White.
Just you white, Henry Higgins, just you white.
A becomes an I.
I'm sorry. Just you white, Henry Higgins, just you white.
And now the rat. You're gonna gut us now.
Just you white, Henry Higgins, just you white.
And now the fury.
Just
You hate him.
white, Henry Higgins.
He's a
just-
bully.
Yes,
He's kept you up all night.
Just you white, Henry Higgins.
Bread and water.
All right. Just you white, Henry Higgins, just you white.
Good. Now.
You'll be sorry, but your tears will be too light. You'll be broken on and money. Will I help you? Don't be funny. Just you white, Henry Higgins, just you white. Just you white, Henry Higgins, till you're sick. And you scream to fetch a doctor double quick. I'll be off a second later and go straight to the theater. Oh, Henry Higgins, just you white. Oh, Henry Higgins, just you white until we're swimming in the sea. Oh, Henry Higgins, and you'll get a crab per little wife from me. When you yell you're going to drown, I'll get dressed and go to town. Oh, ho, ho, Henry Higgins, oh, ho, ho, Henry Higgins, just you white. One day I'll be famous, I'll be proper and prim. Go to St. James, so often I will call it St. Jim. One evening the king will say, oh, Liza, old thing, I want all of England your praises to sing. Next week on the 20th of May, I proclaim Liza Doolittle Day. All the people will celebrate the glory of you, and whatever you wish and want, I gladly will do. Lancelot King, says I, in a manner well read, that all I want is Henry Higgins' head. Done, says the king with a stroke. Lord, run and ring in the cloak, and then they'll march you Henry Higgins to the wall, and the king will tell me lies that found them all. As they lift their rifles higher, I'll shout, ready, aim, fire! Oh, ho, ho, Henry Higgins, and down you'll go, Henry Higgins! Just you wait!
Okay, Harrison, we're ready for you.
Remember this day? I'll never forget it. I've never even sung with an orchestra before. I'm an actor. Look at them. 31 musicians waiting to accompany me. They'll hate me. They're the enemy, that's what they are. But they mustn't know that. They mustn't know that I'm frightened.
Just coming, France. Oh, that was wonderful. You really had to be perfect. You got the action wonderfully.
Oh, thank you. What about the orchestra? Aren't they marvelous?
Are they?
Oh, yes, it's like, well, singing on a feather bed compared to that rehearsal piano.
Oh, Lord.
They're going to be marvelous.
Thank you.
I'm going out front to watch, my love.
Aye.
See you.
Oh.
This is our star, Rex Harrison.
I'm delighted to see you, gentlemen. This is really the first time I've ever sung on the stage. I think if we're patient with each other, we'll be able to solve your problems. I'm rather a slow study, and I've had to train myself to be patient. And I just hope that my patience doesn't bore you.
Would you like to do it once with piano, Rex?
No, not in the least.
I thought you might be nervous.
Oh, no, not at all.
Shall we go?
By all means.
On the top.
I've grown accustomed to her face. She almost makes them.
Excuse me, what are you playing down there? That doesn't sound like accustomed to your face.
I know it isn't. I'm an ordinary man.
Oh. Oh, all right, well, begin again.
From the top?
From the what?
From the beginning.
From the beginning. I'm an ordinary man who desires nothing more than just an ordinary chance to live exactly as he likes and do precisely what he wants. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What?
Yes, I can hear you, Rex.
Well, I can't hear you. How can you hear me?
Excuse me.
You don't seem to be blowing in this number. Would you mind just running to the back of the theater and seeing if you can hear me?
I play in a minute, Mr. Harrison.
You do? Ye gods.
From an average man am I.
An average man am I, of no eccentric whim, who likes to live his life free of strife, doing whatever he thinks is best for him. I'm just an ordinary man. But let a woman in your life. Stop, 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 stop! Take it out, I demand that be taken out.
Take out what?
That's ya-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. It's so loud. How do I know where to sing?
You'll get used to it, Rex.
I will never get used to it. It's absolutely ridiculous for a man to be standing up here saying his lines with a symphony orchestra blasting away down there.
What would you like to do, Rex?
I'd like to do it as a straight play. That's what I'd like to do.
Shall we go on?
Oh, yes, 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 go on. But there's a woman in your life, and you're up against a wall. Make a plan and you will find she has something else in mind. And so rather than do either, you do something else that neither likes at all. Franz, excuse me, I'm sorry. Franz, excuse me. Do you think there might be a laugh there?
There will be, Rex.
Well, then, if there is, would you mind you and your chaps just waiting a minute?
Oh, we couldn't do that, Rex.
Why not? Make a plan and you will find she has something else in mind. And so rather than do either, you do something else that neither likes at all. Well, it's vaguely funny, isn't it?
It is, Rex. But once the music begins, it continues through to the end.
But that's absurd. Supposing the audience laughs and they miss the next line.
Rex, in the musical, the audience knows not to laugh into the next line.
You see, I don't believe you. Where did they learn that?
They just know. Let's take it from, they want to talk of Keats and Milton.
You want to talk of Keats or Milton? She only wants to talk of love. You go to see a play or ballet and spend it searching for her glove. Oh, let a woman in your life and you invited her to strike and they buy their wedding bands with the dancers in her hands. I'd be equally as... What's happened? I thought I was doing beautifully.
You got ahead of us, Rex. We cannot play that fast.
Well, take out some notes. There's far too much going on down there. I can't hear myself think on this stage. Aren't you supposed to be following me? I'm not supposed to be following you.
Let's go through with it once, Rex.
No, I'm sorry. We'll have to come to some understanding about this, you know, otherwise the curtain will not go up tomorrow night.
Let's go on to the next section.
I sing this song on a balcony 4 miles from the orchestra pit, and when I'm up here all alone, I want to know that you're following me.
Shall we go on?
Yes, go on.
From the top of the next section?
From the top, from the top, from the top. I'm a very gentle man, even-tempered and good-natured, whom you never hear complain, who has the milk of human kindness by the quart in every vein, a patient man am I, down to my fingertips, the sort who never could, never would, let an insulting remark escape his lips. Just a very gentle. But there's a woman in your life, and Patience hasn't got a chance. She will beg you for advice, your reply will be concise, and she'll listen very nicely, then go out and do precisely what she wants. You are a man of grace and polish, who never spoke above a hush. Now all at once you're using language that would make a sailor blush. There's a woman in your life, and you're plunging in a knife. Let the others of my sex tie the knot around their necks. I'd prefer a new edition of the Spanish Inquisition than ever let a woman in my life. I'm a quiet living man who prefers to spend the evenings in the silence of his room, who likes an atmosphere as restful as an undiscovered tomb, a pensive woman of philosophic joys, who likes to meditate, contemplate, free from humanity's mad inhuman noise. Just a quiet living man. But let a woman in your life, and your sabbatical is through. In a line that never ends, come an army of her friends, come to jabber and to chatter and to tell her what the matter is with you. She'll have a booming, boisterous family who will descend on you en masse. She'll have a large, Wagnerian mother, oh, with a voice that shatters glass. There's a woman in your life. There's a woman in your life. I shall never let a woman in my life.
Bravo, Rex.
This will be a disaster.
And of course, this was recreated. There was a special at the end of the 1950s called the Fabulous 50s. And what you've just seen was a recreation of what they went through. And we'll end today with this.
I could have danced all night, I could have danced all night, and still have begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I'd never done before. I'll never know what made it so exciting. Why all at once my heart took flight. I didn't know when I could have danced all night and still have begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I've never done before. I'll never know what made it so exciting. Why all at once my heart took flight. I only know when he began to dance with me. I could have danced, danced, danced.
Well, next week we'll finish up the decade and we'll go a little bit further. I hope everybody enjoyed, some of the golden age today. Saying hi to my friends in New Jersey, and I hope everything's good with everybody. See y'all next week, and watch for an announcement to come about our trip to the Berkshires. Also, don't forget Some Like It Hot, May 6th. If anybody's interested in that, it's really wonderful. Saw it. It's just one great good time. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.